Good morning and welcome to the Pitch Strike Chronicles. I am Tats. I'm here with Bob, and we are just a week and a half away from opening day. And the biggest question that's been on everybody's mind is, will Volpe just give Cashman the option of having no choice but to start him opening day? And from everything that I've seen, this kid he's ready to go. He's left no doubt in anybody's mind, and the biggest thing is the service time and postponing the clock, and I'm going to be a problem, and it's just going to continue to frustrate us in a spring training that's been nothing short of frustration from the lack of movement in the spring training trades. Continuing to see Hicks out there, the questions with Donaldson, IKF, and he's got to start. There's no other way around it. He has given the organization no other option. Rob, what's your thoughts on this?
I said it last week. I said it again on Twitter recently. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
Okay, good. I thought there was an issue with the audio. Anyway, I've been saying it for a few weeks now, at least a week. He needs to be on the roster. There's nothing he can prove to you at this point anymore in AAA. If you send him to AAA for a month, that's literally just to manipulate service time. If they tell you you need to see more at bats, no, they're just trying to lie to us once again. He needs to be on this roster. He is by far the best option for this team, whether it's a shortstop or second base. I still don't know what they want to do there yet, but 1,000% he's the best option.
Yeah, it's actually remarkable about here is a player that we have heard nothing but raves about from the organization. And we all know that they are going to use that service time and they're going to manipulate it and deny us having him opening day. It's actually because that's the reality of it. And in respect to the business side of it, yes, it does serve the Yankees well long term to postpone his start. But will it really? If you have to wait a month before you start Volpe and you have IKF as one of your everyday players, are you serving the purpose of the season well? I think that's part of the equation that needs to be brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. And also that's part of the thing we talked about in the show last week was the new rule that if a player wins Rookie of the Year, and I think there's something else involved, you get an extra year of service time. So it allows teams to call up players sooner instead of manipulating it. I hate the whole service time thing. It's the only sport that does that. No other sport kind of does this to their rookies where, like, okay, if we hold them back for the first month of the season, we can keep them for an extra year. No other sport does that. Baseball is the only sport that allows the teams to manipulate its minor leaguers and its budding stars of the future. So I really hope that the Yankees finally get their heads straight and call up a player when he's ready, because the last time that we called up a guy, despite him not even really necessarily being ready, they went all in on Judge in 2017, and he sucked in 2016. And they gave him a shot out of the gate, had a good spring. You know, he was a lot older than Volpe at the time, but he came up, and he had a great season. Let's give it a shot. I mean, play your best players. You want to put the best team on the field, the best chance of winning a World Series with Anthony Volpe somewhere in that infield, whether it's shortstop or second base or even third. That's the best chance you have of winning, not with IKF, not with Donaldson every day. You got to jumpstart this next youth movement because you're not trading these guys. You have to play them. Peraza and Volpe should be here. Dominguez is right on their tails. You got to jumpstart it right now. Volpe is ready. There's nothing else he has to prove. He is ready.
Well, it goes into part of my rant today where it's nothing on opening. The Yankees are going to who's on the road, right? The Yankees are going to sell their tickets, and people are going to show up. You just re-signed Judge. You brought back Rizzo. You have these players that draw in the fans, but just imagine just the atmosphere. If you infuse into that, having Peraza and Volpe in that infield, the stadium is going to be electric. It really is. There's no other way around it. So it really, it just it's. I'm trying not to get pissed off because, like I said, there's so much to look forward to, despite all the negativity with the injuries. This is the perfect window for the Yankees to just, throw out their, the philosophy of let's hold off as long as we can so we get more years in his prime. But if he's ready now, you have to make that move. He has really forced Cashman's hand. I think that's really the key point here. There's no other option, because if you hold him back, there's no excuse for it except for it's the service time. That's the only reason, and they're going to try to find every which way that they can just continue. There's no other way around it. It really isn't. And I want to say real quick, good morning, Fort Train, Damien, welcome back. My nephew Brad's in the chat. We got Spencer, FJ, and just so you guys know, these mugs are ready to go. Spencer's will be in there tomorrow. Thank you, Spencer. We'll be. It's and just so everybody knows, it's got our logo on one side, it's got the upper deck for the ladies on the other, and if you DM me or our Twitter account on Facebook, Instagram, send a private message. They're $20, and up until the first pitch, I'm paying for the shipping. You don't even have to pay for it. So put your order in. Let's get some of this merch out.
Slide in Tat's DMs. Go ahead, slide in those DMs. Get them up.
Yep.
You heard the man. Go get yourself a mug.
Yep. So there's more designs in the works, but this design right here is exclusive up until opening day. So we appreciate all the support you guys can give us, and help support the channel, because we are growing and we're growing fast, and it's all because of you guys in the chat. So much respect to all of you. What's the conversion rate to Aussie dollar? I'll find out, Brad. Send me a message and let me know. I'll work with it. We'll figure it out. All right, I got you. Don't worry. I already have to send Donald's over to Scotland, so we'll figure all that out. So for you, Uncle, for my nephew Brad, we'll make it work. I'll send me a message. But back to the Yankees. You also saw, we actually were able to see Debbie Garcia on the mound, even if it wasn't the strongest of an outing. At least we know he's alive, because he's been kind of that name that really hasn't been brought up into the pitching equation. What was your take? What did you get any sense that Garcia is working his way back into the fold, or he's just trying to exist at this point?
I go back to last year. He added miles per hour to his fastball, and he's looked pretty good so far in the spring. When he threw three and a third inning, gave up just 1 run, 2 hits. He did walk 2, struck out 2. He gave up the home run, I believe, to Max Kepler, who's having a pretty good spring so far, by the way. I don't know what they want to do with him anymore, because they royally, and this is what we've been talking about since day one on this show. It became a gag for a while. We went maybe a whole year mentioning it every show. What they did to him in that playoff game is one of the worst things you can possibly do to one of your young starters, because the Yankees don't develop pitching very well or at all. And they had a guy who they could potentially have as a mainstay in their rotation for years to come, and they screwed with him. It was clearly a mental issue after that. Now the command issues are starting to go away a little bit. They're still there, but the fact that he added miles per hour to his fastball, he's still like 23. There's still plenty of room to grow. And the fact that we also now have 2 open rotation spots, we could figure it's going to be Schmidt and Herman, but there's a potential Garcia is still in the 40-man. He can get that opportunity. I would like to see it. I think at this point, though, he could be, and I say could be, more of a bullpen option because of that speed he's adding. So we'll have to wait and see, but I like it because I've always liked Garcia. I hate what they did to him, and I hope that he can get another shot to prove himself.
Yeah, no, and FJ, I'm going to look into that, FJ, if he's out of options or not, because I'm not sure. But it would leave up, there's also the option of, because we have the hole in the bullpen with the issues with Efraz and Canely. So you want to, from inning 1 to inning 9. So I think if Debbie Garcia can really, put another arm into the arsenal of the pitching staff, it can only be a plus. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Brad. He's got one more option. So bring him up, test him out. It's not going to hurt. It really isn't, because we've seen that when up until the point where, as we were joking, as we were talking about, you referenced, we used to bring him up every day, and now you have you still have one option to try him out. He's not you. We were all hyped up about him. We had passed up on trades. I think can't remember the player, but there was a player in Seattle that wanted Garcia, and we said no, because we were so high on him. And that's been, as much as that's been Cashman's downfall of not making the moves when he has the chance, and investing too much into these prospects. If you trade them for big players, just play them. Put your money where your mouth is. You want to hold on to these guys so bad, play them.
Actually, excuse me. I just looked on NJ.com and it says he's out of options. And there's also some articles saying that he doesn't have any options. So this is kind of his last chance, that if he does have a good spring and the Yankees don't find a spot for him, they could move him. He's one of those Florial types that if they don't play him, they got to get rid of him. So I don't know what that means, if it means he's going to make the roster. He's had a good spring, but do they want to start him, or do they have him in that long relief role, technically a 6th starter? They could do that because now they kind of have to, with Trevino hurt, Canely hurt. So we know guys are going to be on the IL to start the season. So there's an opening for him. And then when one of those guys comes back, you could potentially have one of those phantom IL stints, or maybe you flip him later in April. But this could be the time. You still need an outfielder. You need an outfielder. And there are teams out there that could potentially give you something for Davy Garcia if you package a couple of players. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want to see him gone, but they screwed him up. Another player that they did not let grow in their organization. So I wish him the best wherever he is. If he's with us, great. If he's gone, I hope he pitches well. But I don't want to get negative today, but he's one of those players that are never going to leave my head when it comes to like what could have been, because he didn't get hurt. He was pitching well, and they screwed him. And then it just completely ruined him because he was so young, and he still is. So the fact that he's already out of options, I'm hoping Brad's right and he has one more, but there's multiple articles saying he's out. So we'll have to wait and see what happens at the end of the spring.
Well, even if he still has one option left, that still makes him a tradable asset. So if you pack him with Florial, because Florial has no options, and I know I'm going to piss off LI right now, and I'll piss off myself because I actually was really I've been hoping that Florial got a fair shake, but I think that his lifeline is just up. I just don't see that they're not going to give him that option. They're not going to give him a chance. So rather than just lose him for nothing, might as well, like Li's saying, move Efros to the Phillies. But Efros is not going to only cash for trades for injured players. And so maybe call the Phillies and see if they can get Florial and Garcia and see what they offer for him.
You're not going to get much from a team like the Phillies for Florial because they have nowhere to play him either.
You got to call Pittsburgh for a move like that.
Yeah, you got to call Pittsburgh, maybe like Colorado, a team that's probably not going to compete but can use a young outfielder just to try him out.
Miami.
Even Miami probably can't even use him. But Florial has been arguably the worst of our outfield options. Like, he's not having a good spring at all. Ortega's been better. Hicks has been better. Calhoun's been better. Cabrera's been better, and they've barely played him in the outfield. So I don't see how there's any scenario where Florial makes this team. He's going to be a Tyro Estrada type of trade piece that happened a couple of years ago. We're not going to get much for him, and either he's going to be DFA'd and flipped for a off the 40-man roster type of prospect that nobody knows, and then we're going to have to move on from it. But he's been given opportunities, hasn't really – at the same time hasn't been given opportunities, but when he's been out there, he's been either good or he's been terrible. This spring, he hasn't been very good. This was his opportunity to really run away with it. Hasn't done it. So I can't be mad at this point. If he doesn't make the team, which he won't, and we've been saying it since before the spring, he's not your left fielder unless he had a great spring. Ortega, Calhoun, even Hicks have been miles better than him so far.
Yeah, and like they're saying in the chat, no, Florial's not. I think he's out of the equation. He really is. There's and it's very upsetting. I thought, having him come up for a series, for a 3-game series, and giving him 3 at bats was not a fair shake. Because sometimes we've seen that players can be called up. They'll struggle for a month or so, and then it just clicks. Where it comes before Real, we had other players under contract that we had to, because your contract is what makes you a playable player. We see it right now at Hicks. We saw it with Gardner. Even though he was kind of falling off a little bit, and Gardner wasn't. Not that he. I hate bashing on Gardner because he was such a good Yankee. He may not have had the numbers, but he respected the organization. He respected all the tradition. He was a phenomenal teammate. Nobody had a bad thing word to stop him. Aged out, and that kind of sucks. But Florial just never he never got the at-bats. And but to the other side of the coin, when he was given the opportunity, he never seized it. We saw what Peraza did with his opportunity, where it's his job to lose this spring training. And the only competition to Peraza right now for short is Volpe, not even IKF.
But yeah, I mean, you think about right now is the perfect time to trade IKF. And if you're talking about Florial, I know Li just mentioned he hasn't been given opportunities. Even if you want to look at his very small sample size at the major league level, he hasn't hit. And I like the guy. I like Florial. I've been mentioning his name for 3 years on this show. So is Bobby Tats. We're both big fans of him. But he hasn't taken off. This was his shot this spring. It was open competition for left field. He hasn't done it. And now Ortega's starting to struggle a little bit as well. But Florial's hitting like 1-something, which is exactly what he does at the major league level. He doesn't hit major league pitching well. So if you're going to say he's the center fielder, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do very much in the outfield. You're not going to have a good outfield if he's out there. You're going to have to roll with Aaron Hicks. At this point, he's probably your center fielder, which sucks. They're not going to call up Dominguez, not yet. I would love that, but it's not happening. Volpe is a much more likely shot than Dominguez does at this point. But I wish they gave Florial more shots. And I'm not going to argue with you about this, Li. I'm not doing this again because I've already made it clear plenty of times on the show I like Florial. But he's not going to be here. And if he is, because 2 more players get hurt and they have absolutely no shot or no choice. to start him. And then if that's the case, if our outfield is Calhoun, Florial, and Cabrera, we're screwed going into the season.
No, it's not that we're saying that Florial is a terrible baseball player or a bad person. It's just there's no fit for him, But to Eli's point, like it's with Bader out, does that give Riel a little bit longer lifeline? I think that's something that does need to come in. I think that's not the craziest statement from Li, and he's come out with some good ones, but I don't think that's one of the crazy ones.
I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. He's having the worst spring out of anyone on the roster.
Yeah,
he's worse than Aaron Hicks,
and that's bad. See, that's the other thing. Hicks is just he's got that free pass. It doesn't matter what he does. He can hit 0 and have 100 errors in spring training. He's going to be on the opening day. And that just pisses me off because you're seeing so much more from other players, and it's spring training, but also what do you see him really working on and improving on? That's where Florial falls short. Everybody else has elevated their game to some level. You're not seeing that from Florial, and that's why I'd rather see Dominguez. Even Brad brings up Soto had less than that in AAA and AA before he came up. So, yeah, I think Dominguez is the one that's going to push a lot of these other guys out. I think that we're going to see a situation where Dominguez, we had the debate the other day. We disagreed, and then afterwards I was thinking about it with Dominguez. I could see them giving him the month down in AA, seeing how he carries his spring training progress into a regular game. You may see him this year, especially if Hicks continues to let everybody down. Do you think that there is a window at all this season for Dominguez to say, you know what, enough's enough, get him up here?
Look, I know we disagreed the other day, but I would love nothing more than for him to be my opening day center fielder or left field. Would love nothing more than that because I want those three on the team as soon as possible, Dominguez, Volpe, and Peraza. But he is the one guy that I would be okay with if they use we need to see more, if they use that excuse for him because he's still very, very young and he's had a very small amount of at-bats. And I know Juan Soto jumped up to the next level. Dominguez is probably not Juan Soto, but he could be. We don't know yet. But I think he's going to be a really good player. I think if you give it the month, I'm perfectly fine with manipulating his service time for a month until he's ready. But with Bader being hurt, your outfield currently is Judge in center or right. Cabrera could be the right fielder or Stanton could be the right fielder. And then you have maybe Judge play left or Hicks plays left. You got to have to realign this somehow. Calhoun's making this team the way he's been playing. I don't know about Ortega anymore because he's starting to fall off a cliff. He could still make it if he performs well the next week or so. And maybe Florial has a good week to finish it off and they say, we don't want to get rid of him yet. Let's use him for another month. I just don't know if that's going to happen. But there's an opportunity here to get Cabrera a ton of at-bats. There's an opportunity here to get Calhoun at-bats. And there's also an opportunity where the Yankees say, screw it, Dominguez is the guy. Let's see if they do. If they do it, great. But then you're going to have an issue when Bader does come back because he's going to be back within the first couple of weeks. They said 6 weeks, that he's probably going to be back at some point at the end of April, if anything. Do I want to see Dominguez up for a month and then sent down? No. I'd rather just have him start the year in AA. Eventually we'll make the jump to AAA, and next thing you know, he'll be on the Major League roster. I'm hoping it's sooner than later, but I'm okay if they have to let him marinate a little bit. There's the word.
I agree with that. And I just as much as I was really hammering for something positive, and I was, I'm locked in with these young kids, the same way that we were locked in with the core four. It's let them figure it out. You know, so but if you're going to call up Dominguez just to treat him like all the other prospects, where he's up for a week, maybe two, then you send him back down, and next thing you know, you're doing this flip flop, and it's not, you could actually screw up his development, just like they did with other players, and yeah, I just don't see where it makes sense for the business side to call him up before the service time kicks in. And it doesn't serve him a purpose to have him, on that Scranton shuttle, that we always used to hear about. I think that will not be what's best for him. So it's going to be, you would have to have where Hicks is just so abominable and there's no other option. Cabrera is just too valuable as a utility player. So you don't want to lock him up solely at left field, where they bring Dominguez up and realign the outfield, where he is that everyday player with Judge.
Yeah, I mean, eventually your outfield is going to be Dominguez either in center or left.
Yeah.
Judge is going to be in right. They got to get a center fielder. Now, I do think Dominguez can play center field, but there's some questions about whether or not he'll be a center fielder at the major league level. Although we know the Yankees don't really like having too many guys out there in left field in Yankee Stadium. That's the whole reason why Aaron Judge is playing left field this year is in the Bronx, because they don't want Stanton out there. So they are very cautious about that left field. I don't know why. I think Dominguez will be just fine in either position. But for now, your outfield is probably Hicks, Judge, Stanton, because Calhoun is really bad defensively. So I think you could see an opening day situation where he DHs and Stanton plays right and Judge plays left and Hicks plays center, or Hicks plays left and Judge plays center. But
I'd rather Judge in center or right. I would leave him out of left field.
I don't see the issue with him in left field. I know I know you don't like it. I know Donald didn't like it. I really don't see an issue with it because it was Aaron Judge's idea. It wasn't Cashman's idea. Judge is the one.
I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying he can't play left field, but I would just try to keep him. We saw his ability in center, and if it wasn't for the amount of games played, if he would have played more games in center than right, he could have been a Gold Glove center fielder, and vice versa with right. Left is a very tricky position in that outfield at Yankee Stadium. And the last thing that could you imagine the uproar if he's playing left field and tweaks something and gets hurt? We'll be screaming.
Well, that could happen in center. That could happen in center, and that could happen in right. We were saying the same thing when they moved him to center field. Like, what if he gets hurt? And he did it fine. I mean, if this whole thing is he can't win a Gold Glove, I couldn't care less. The Gold Glove is a nonsense award at this point anyway.
The caliber of his play, the award is meaningless, really.
Yeah, he's great in any position you put him in. I don't know why they're so afraid of Stanton in left field, because he did it already in his career. They put him out there in the playoffs last year, I believe. So I don't know why. I'm not saying he's the everyday right fielder. Please, I'm not doing this with you. I'm not saying he's the everyday right fielder, but they don't want him in left field. I'm telling you what the Yankees have said. I'm not saying my ideas. The Yankees have literally said this. They don't want him in left field in Yankee Stadium. In other ballparks, okay. But in Yankee Stadium, they'd rather him be in right field. That is their quote, not mine. So don't twist my words.
But Stanton even said it himself. He feels that his health it's more beneficial to his health to be as engaged in the game as possible. He wants to play he wants to play in the field, so he stays loose at the plate. That he's asking for it. It's not like the organization is the one that decided he can't play the outfield. Let's not go into this whole freaking thing again. All right. He won an MVP, not, he was an outfielder, all right, because the National League did not have the DH, and he was healthy, all right. He came to the Yankees, because they didn't want to have this whole thing. Remember the whole issue with Jeter and A-Rod with shortstop. They wanted to avoid that whole freaking thing again and decided that right off the bat, Stanton's no longer able to play the outfield, which was all bullshit, right? Because that was Judge's home. They built the Judge's chambers. Right field was Judge's, and nobody was going to take him from that. And that's when, the less that they were using him every day in the outfield, the more they were just using him as a DH. That's when all the issues were starting. We saw last year he was starting to play. It was the year before. He was playing a significant amount of outfield because Judge was hurt, and that's when he was his most productive. So I don't want to hear that the outfield is going to ruin him, because I don't buy it, and I haven't seen the proof.
No, and it hasn't been proven. In fact, Aaron Boone has said it, that it helps him. Stanton has said it. We've all said it. He should be in the outfield more. Now, they said they want to have him maybe 60 games in the outfield this year if he's healthy. That's fine, because if he plays, let's say, 140 games and 60 of them are in the outfield, he DHs the rest, okay, I'm okay with that. But I don't know why they're so afraid of him in left field. Because if a healthy Harrison Bader can cover so much ground that you're really not going to need to worry about Stanton. And if the whole thing is he could get hurt covering more ground, he can get hurt anywhere. He can get hurt running the bases. He can get hurt sliding. He could get hurt by getting hit by a pitch. Anyone can get hurt at any single time, because we know the Yankees, they are the kings of getting injured. So stop playing so fearful. And if Stanton is your best, if you want to put him in left or right, but put him somewhere in the outfield to start the season. Either it's left field or right field, and Judge plays center. I don't want Aaron Hicks out there every day, but he will be. And when Bader gets healthy, they need to use that DH spot to get more guys at bats, because we need to see Torres more, because he's not going anywhere. And if Volpe's here starting at second or short, guess what? Torres is probably going to have to DH, or you might have to DH LeMahieu. They need to use that DH spot as a rotational piece. Stanton can't be handicapping it, nor does he want to be. He wants to play the outfield.
Yeah.
So Calhoun is a terrible outfielder, so I don't want him out there too often. I'd be fine with him DHing because he's a left-handed bat. He can pop a few, and if he struggles, guess what? Minor league contract, goodbye. So there's really no risk there. But I don't know why they're so afraid, because they did it last year. He was playing the outfield a bunch, and then he got hurt, so they couldn't do it. And then he struggled the rest of the way through. He needs to be out there. He needs to be out there. He's a much better player when he's out there. And it's been proven. We've said it. He's said it. Boone has said it. Stop being afraid. Play your best players. Have your best chance of winning. Please take April seriously. I know the Yankees don't like to do that, but they need, at some point they got to get their heads out of their asses and change things up, because you're hurting your chances of winning. We saw last year how a good April or a good start to the season helped us, because if we had a terrible first month or first 2 months, we wouldn't have won that division. So April is just as important as September. You need to take it seriously. And if Stanton plays well, keep him in the outfield. If you have to DH him after every 2 days, fine. But he can do it. I don't know why they're so afraid. He's a good outfielder. He always was. He was good in right field. He was fine in left field. He took a little time to get used to it, but he played fine in 2018, 19, 20. Even last year they put him out there, and they didn't have an issue last year. They're so afraid of an injury, and that if you do that, why are you so cautious when it hasn't even happened yet? Just put him in left. Put him in left.
Yeah, it's they don't. Why aren't we just as frustrated or scared having Rizzo playing first base with his back? And when you have a back problem, and I've had them for decades, right? The back doesn't heal like everything else does. So, thank God we have LeMahieu on this roster that could play first base. So you could play first, second, third. You could probably play the outfield for all we freaking know. You could probably catch for all we know. LeMahieu's just that versatile. So you need players that are going to be able to get you want your main guys to be able to have those worked in rest days. What's going on, Hector? Salute. And it's you really need. I want to see these guys just playing their game. They're not at the major. You get guys like Stanton. They're not at that stage in their career where they're washed up, right? Donaldson is an everyday DH more than Stanton is. Let's be honest about that, right? And he's even worse at the plate. Actually, maybe Donaldson's not the best. He's not the best example because he actually is a very serviceable third baseman. But Donaldson's the other guy. He's clogging everything up, But let's let Donaldson play, offense and defense. Let's let Rizzo play offense and defense with his problems. But Stanton, all of a sudden, he's made of glass. I don't buy it.
Well, a lot of the fan base would have you believe that Stanton is made of glass, but I just don't get it because like his injuries in his career like, hasn't really been him just because he's playing the outfield and he just gets hurt. 2021 was his healthiest season and he played a lot of the outfield. And then last year he played through an injury in the All-Star game, which again which is another issue, but I don't know why they're so afraid. I just don't get it. But if they want him, okay, if you want him in right field in Yankee Stadium, okay, but then put him out there. Put him out there more often and put Judge in center. And then you could move Bader to left if you have to. Those two in center and left field in some capacity, you don't have to worry about it. And Stanton can handle right field just fine. The ground is going to be covered. But in other stadiums, if you're saying like when we go to Fenway, Stanton plays the monster just fine.
Yeah.
And we're seeing Aaron Hicks once again not be able to play a good left field. He had another defensive gaffe. I can't stress enough he should not be here anymore. And I'm not going to get into that conversation again. But we're running out of
I've got more trivia questions right than Aaron Hicks has made good plays in the outfield.
There you go. And Bobby Patch got barely any trivia right when we did that 2 years ago. So, yeah, look, there has been a need for a while for outfielders. The easiest answer is just let Dominguez cook at the start of the season, but I don't think that's going to happen. They can still make a trade from strength for strength. Maybe Minnesota can use another pitcher. I know they just got Pablo Lopez, but they also have a bunch of outfielders. So maybe now is the time to go get a Max Kepler. He's having a good spring, and I would much rather him out there in left field than Aaron Hicks. I'm not saying Kepler is the end-all, be-all, but he's much better than what we have right now. So there's still time because yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of one of the worst trades in MLB history. So there is time to make a move. And we do see a lot of teams make trades right before the spring ends. So there can still something can still happen. It needs to happen. We have too many infielders, not enough outfielders. Now's the time to make a move. Let's see what Cashman can do. Let's see if our GM can grow a set because this is all about them growing a set. If you got to play the kids because there's nothing that Hicks is going to be able to show me that's saying he's the better option than Dominguez. And I'm even saying Dominguez should start the season in the minors. But if I had the chance to run the team for a day, I would announce it already. He's the opening day center fielder.
Yeah, no, it's like what you said, and I agree with you. It serves no purpose for Dominguez if you're not going to have him play in the outfield for the whole season. He's got to be your everyday starter. If you're going to bring him up just to plug in until Bader is healthy, that's what we should be using Hicks for as a fourth outfielder. So you'll have, for argument's sake, you'll have Stanton in left, Bader in center, and you got Judge in right? Depending on what stadium you're playing in, you flip-flop Judge and Stanton in right and left. Hicks is your fourth outfielder just to get one of those guys off their feet. You can't do that with Dominguez. You can't have Dominguez as your fourth outfielder. It's not going to help. We've seen that mistake made by so many teams, more so the Yankees than any other. They make these call-ups that everybody wants, and they just leave them sitting on a freaking bench, and they don't get any play time. And by the time they're out of options, we have no confidence in them. So we either lose them for nothing, or they just get buried in the minor leagues for their career, or we just lose them for nothing. You just get thrown into this trade where, you have players like Andujar and Chance Adams and Frazier, where you could have had Cole. Could have had these blockbuster trades, but no, we really trust in our play. We can't give up these prospects. They're in the top 30 in MLB. So let's just keep hugging all these guys but we're going to hug them so tight we never let them breathe. That's the Yankees' flaw. That's Cashman's flaw.
That's always been his flaw. That's been his biggest issue. Is with for me, it's always been his minor league development because I think he trades fine. I don't have an issue with most of his deals. I know you can bring up the fact that everyone he's gotten in the last year ended up getting hurt. I again, I'm not going to get into that, but his ability to screw up his own prospects is unmatched. So this is his farm system, right? This is his baby bombers, and the fact that Judge, to a degree, Severino, you can put Montgomery on that list because he was a very good starter. He was just solid all around, and he's going to be good for the Cardinals this year. I guess you can put Torres technically. I don't know if I just mentioned him or not, but that's such a small sample size of all these different prospects that we've had that have amounted to something because he dicked around Clint Frazier and it cost us a chance to move him when he had the value. He dicked around Chance Adams. We could have moved him sooner. Could have moved Davy Garcia, actually. We could have moved him. We could have moved a lot of people to get pieces to help us win now. Because as much as we want to build a farm system, we are still a win now team. We always will be. So his ability to be like, I want to use this guy, but I don't want to use him is something that I'll never understand. It's another reason why I wanted him out the door this offseason. That should have been it. It should have been over. We should have had a new GM. But now that they have Sabian and Minaya there, I'm hoping that they can kind of sway his decision more to be like, hey, look, Dominguez is here. He's playing well. Give him a shot. Even when Bader comes back, Dominguez can be your left fielder. So if they have to start the season with Dominguez exclusively in left and Judge in center and Stanton plays right until Bader comes back and then Stanton can go back to DHing and then playing the outfield every so often, the future is jump-started. And Peraza will be there. Volpe will be there. And then maybe a team calls you for Gleyber Torres because at that point, what do you have for him? Because he's a rotational piece in the infield. If they were smart, they would just eat the money. Aaron Hicks is gone. Donaldson's gone. Pay them not to play for you because you can afford it. You're paying them anyway.
They did like we said last week. They did it with Ellsbury. They did it with A-Rod. Pretty much, look, your time's up. You're done. We're just going to eat the money and let you do what you want to do. Just don't come back. Just don't come on the field. They're going to do that same exact thing with Donaldson and solve a couple of their problems.
They could trade IKF. They could kick Donaldson to the sun. They could send Aaron Hicks to any jail for pretending to be a baseball player. And the team will be better. Because guess what? The fans will be like, okay, look, it's technically rolling it back, but now you're jump-starting the future. Now we can go see Judge, we can go see Rizzo, and we can go see these kids. We can go see this potential core because you're telling us this is the future. You didn't trade any one of these guys for a Brian Reynolds or a Castillo last year, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine they didn't trade them because I wanted to keep those three. But you got to play them now. I know Peraza's been struggling this spring, but I would much rather let him go through the growing pains than I would seeing IKF struggle to field the ground ball again. I can't look at it again. I can't see him cost Garrett Cole another 3 runs. I can't do it this year. So if IKF has to be shipped out, which he should be, do it. If someone offers you something good for Gleyber Torres, do it. Just do it. And I don't want to trade Gleyber Torres, so I would hold on to him as long as possible. But Donaldson needs to go. He's giving you nothing. There's nothing that he's doing that tells me he's worth $25 million. Eat the money. Say it was in just accountability. There's that word again. Just admit you're a mistake. 1 year later, if they admit their mistake, I think we'd be a lot more happier as a fan base because I'm still excited for this season. I'd be a lot more excited if we see those 3 young kids and Cabrera as well on this opening day roster because then guess what? There's reason to be like they're changing a little bit. They're doing something different instead of just being like, we think Donaldson can be better. No crap. He was terrible last year. It'd be hard for him to be worse, but not $25 million.
If he's worse than last year, then I don't even want to think about that.
Right.
Well, what's wrong with Cashman saying, look, we went all in on this guy. We had every hope that he would be able to perform. It didn't work out the way the organization had hoped, but we have, the options down in the minor leagues to plug in and get this team back on track. what would be wrong with him saying that? I wish he would say that. You could still stick by your guns. You want to say that you're all in on this player. That's fine. But when it's not working, you need to be able to retract that. Cashman doesn't have that ability. He will never say he's wrong, and he will live and die by these stupid contracts until they're expired. And then there'll be another aging veteran that's injury prone that he'll plug in their place and continue to just smother these prospects down in the minors. It's the same. We've seen this so many times.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Chris brings up a good point here. Wong, Sevy, Jordan are the only pitchers that have made it in the last 20 years. 2 of them are injury prone. Wong got hurt running the bases, which ruined everything because he would have been one of the better. Imagine if he was healthy during the 2009 championship. Yeah. He probably would have won another 15 games. But yeah, he's another one. And Sevy, I say he's been good. He's definitely shown that he can be a very good number 2 or even a number 1 in a lot of opportunities he's gotten. He showed he could be a number 1, but he's injury prone. So the inability to produce pitching has been Cashman's flaw. But again, they don't know when to call certain guys up. The only time it worked is when they gave Montgomery a shot right out of the spring, and no one saw that coming. And he had a great rookie season. He was forgotten in 2017 because how good Judge was, how good Sanchez was that year. Greg Bird produced at times. No one really remembered that Montgomery was a rookie as well in 2017 and played very well. Yep. But then he got hurt the next year. So
Montgomery was also that rookie where, if he had I remember watching at work, and he got beat up on the mound. And I was watching the Pulse game. And he stood in front of his locker and made no excuses. I feel like I cost my team the game. I should have pitched better. I was trying to force this pitch into the zone. I didn't have the feel for it. He just laid himself out there. And I'm like, that's what we need. We need players that are going to hold themselves accountable. But we also need a management team that's going to reward those players when they are accountable and when they're performing. Call them out when they're not. If I don't get my job done, I got to hear from my boss the next day. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's in private in his office. Sometimes in front of everybody. He'll just be like, "Hey, you guys just keep, you're not doing this right. Do better." It's to me, it's motivating. And I'm a very harsh critic. On my job. So what's going on, Ivan? I did see you sneak in here. So it goes back to the whole theme of this whole podcast since its inception: accountability. And Cashman has none of it. He's got excuses. He's got more excuses than there are words in War and Peace. I'm stuck with this idiot. I'm just stuck with him.
Well, this goes to Elliot's comment here. If the Yankees made disparaging remarks about their players, whether they're on the team or not, there would be consequences. They really can't do that. No one's saying they have to come out and say Josh Donaldson sucks, so we're cutting him. They're not going to do that. But if they cut him and say, we have an opportunity to play, we have Volpe and Peraza. They're both here. We got to put them in the infield. LeMahieu can play third. There's no reason to have Donaldson. If you can just say, look, we're going to give him an opportunity to play elsewhere. If they DFA him, maybe somebody works out a trade where the Yankees eat some of the money, they take on a little bit, and the Yankees can save some dollars. They don't have to come out and say, yeah, these guys suck. We got to get rid of them. No, they're never going to do that. That's not what we're saying. Just say we tried something, didn't work, and now we're going to roll with the kids because Aaron Hicks, IKF, and Josh Donaldson are literally holding back the potential of could potentially hold back Peraza, Volpe, and Dominguez.
Yeah.
There's a chance that Peraza doesn't make this opening day roster because he struggled this spring. There's a very good chance of that happening right now. And they say your infield is IKF at short, Torres or LeMahieu at second, Rizzo and Donaldson at first and third. There's a very good chance they literally roll it back. Those 3 players that everybody has talked about ad nauseum among this fan base, there's one common theme about Yankee fans that we would like to see those 3 somewhere else this year, and those 3 kids get the shot at the major league level. Because what is it going to do? What else? How can it hurt you? Those 3 players have not done anything to say they should be here, and the 3 kids have already shown you more upside to be like, the future is now, let them play. So the Yankees got to do something about it. And we're not saying they got to just put a target on them, on a picture of them, and say, throw darts at it. But just admit your mistake. That's all we want.
That's it.
That's all we want.
Yeah, believe me, if I had $1 for every mistake that I had to admit to, I'd be retired.
Yeah. And again, Elliot, we're not saying they have to say it's a bad. He's bad. He's so bad. Because when teams trade players after acquiring them, like a year later, they just go, it was time to move on. That's all he has to say. If the Cashman trades, let's say, for example, he trades IKF tomorrow, and the press conference say, why now? Just saying, we have a bunch of infielders. We have a chance to let Volpe and Peraza play. We had an opportunity to move them, and we did it. And if you cut Donaldson next Tuesday, and they say, why'd you cut him now? They say, again, we have an opportunity to play these young kids. We want to go younger. That's it. There's nothing wrong.
You're not
with what
putting
he's
the
saying.
player down. You're just moving on. That goes to what I said before. All he has to say is, look, we had all the faith. We had all our faith in this player. We brought him back. We gave him we bought his option. But with the development of these kids, we feel that that Follett is suited elsewhere. That's it. No harm, no foul. Nobody's feelings got hurt. IKF goes to be a player somewhere else, and we get the youth that we've been waiting for. So it's a win-win. But before we sign off, I just want to lead into our next episode, and that is going to be with the issue with Severino and his contract year, the pressures on that, and what the Yankees are planning on doing with the pitching staff and a very weak upcoming free agency on the pitching market. So there's a lot of pressure on the Yankees and Severino to see what the option's going to be. And so tune in on Thursday. We'll be breaking that all down with the pitching and what the other pitching options may be. Any trades that come up, we'll be breaking it all down. And as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you're still looking for more Yankees talk, head over to the Morning Brew Sports on YouTube. Our man Hector will be breaking down his takes on everything on Yankee Land. So head over there. I'll be in the chats as well, and we'll continue to hang out this morning. So just remember, as always, wear your pinstripe pride and play hard.